Hello, everyone. Are you all okay? I'm going to assume that you guys are all, oh, thank you, Rebecca, Helen. Superb. I like the thumbs up. You know I like the thumbs up. Okay, so today we have another guest lecture, which we're very excited about. Today we're having Wagner de Freitas. Am I saying that correctly?
That's perfect.
Okay, good. Wagner has worked all around the world, and one of the things that I'm particularly excited about hearing from him is, or about him in particular, I guess, is that he has also worked across many different types of animation, including game development animation, broadcast animation, film stuff. Like he's kind of very broad knowledge of where animation gets you. Happy about. So today, I believe you have a topic for us that you're going to be kicking off with.
Yep.
For the people, for students, please. What is that noise?
Oops, is that me?
I don't know. It sounds like.
I'm gonna.
Can anyone else hear that? Taylor, can you hear that? That's it. Who turned that? Oh, is that you, Wagner?
Oh, Jesus. What is this?
It was fine just a second ago.
I know.
Can you guys hear that?
It's Wagner. When he muted it, it turned off.
Yeah.
So what it is?
It'll be feedback. It'll be feedback.
Yeah, it sounds like a 28 8-baud modem going on in the background. And I know you know what I mean.
Okay.
There it is. Good. That's it.
That's
it. Awesome. So it was my phone. Sorry.
Okay, good.
It happened before. It's just like I think it's one of the USBs that I plug it into. Sorry.
That's fair enough. Okay. Well, I'm glad we sorted that out because that would have been super distracting the entire time. Okay, Wagner, I'm just going to hand it off to you. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lucas. Thanks so much for having me this afternoon, people. This is a pleasure to go back to the academic realm after since 2016 to 2017, then I went back to production. And Lucas' introduction was great, but yeah, it looks like some other person. I was like, oh, am I that great? No, I'm not. But I started my profession as a 2D animator back in 1994. So that's been a while. So my main focus is more artistic, let's say. 2000 I started with 3D animation and whatnot, and been doing like all sorts of things within animation, including motion graphics, of course. But 2D animation is one of the things that I've been really focused. So anyway, when the great people from Massey invited me to talk about something about animation, I was thinking about this concept that I've been thinking since actually I finished my master back in 2013. That gave me opportunity to study and to see some other stuff within the computer graphics and animation industry per se. So anyway, I'm going to start sharing this screen with you. I'll talk about what it is for today. So I'll have here sharing the screen. And this is this PDF here that I prepared. Oops. Sorry. Sorry, wrong one. There you go. So this is my name, Wagner de Freitas. By the way, I'm from Brazil. I've been here in New Zealand, fortunately, been working in New Zealand as an animator since 2009. It's a great opportunity. It's great to be work in several places. So this is the subject for my lecture today, is posing and storytelling in animation. So for me, one of the main things that we could talk about in animation is posing. And I started paying more attention to this subject when I was like a teacher from 2000 at a media design school from 2016 to from 2012 to 2016, and we recurrent like that would be a subject that we go back very often. So this is like a sample of the work from Midcal, which I think like any animator nowadays should be aware of. Midcal was one of the 9 old men from Disney. If you guys haven't heard about him, I really encourage you to take a look on his work and what he did, what he helped to do. And we could like safely say that he helped to build Disney's legacy. So he was one of the artists where the foundations of Disney were built on. So one of the 9 old men. I particularly like his work on the Jungle Book because, well, I don't know if that's actually true, but people say that he never actually used any reference to do the animation for Khan. So not sure if I'm not sure if that's right, but anyway, if you see the animation that he did on this movie, it's quite impressive, and how he portrayed that tiger as a powerful creature. Because remember, he like the artists in a work like this, they had nothing besides their own interpretation to make like a character to look like or to send the message they need to send. So this is for me what it's one of the things, the big challenges in animation nowadays, especially. So anyway, keep going. One of the guys that I started talking about posing in animation that I heard of, at least, was this fella, Keith Lango. For those of you that are not that never heard about him, he's like one animator that I would say he was between Glen Keane and nowadays the biggest stars animators in the world. For example, Keith Lango, he started his career like he started a series of classes on the internet. And it's around the same time that Animation Mentor started. But then Animation Mentor, they became more like a company, a corporation, or an institution, like we could say this word. While Keith Lango, he was very just by himself, just trying, to explain the art of animation on the internet. So anyway, Animation Mentor prevailed, and he kind of didn't continue to do that. But what is interesting about Keith Lango, and this is actually available nowadays on the internet, is one of his classes, or in one of his videos that he explains animation, he talks about posing. And one of the things that actually struck to me at the time, it was like, well, those things that he's talking about here is like, story isn't necessarily king. There are plenty of great animated movies with relatively simple or weak stories. Characters are king. The only reason a story means anything to an audience is if the audience cares about the characters. So that when I read that, or actually when I listened to that back in the day, well, I'm talking about this when I was teaching. So it's almost 9 years ago now. It's when he was talking, so he was bringing this story in order to make, or actually he was kind of avoiding a story or not making that so important for the process of animation, which I thought it was like, well, is that true? Or, what we could say about that. But it's one of the things that was really interesting when he was talking about posing or this particular piece of video that I really encourage you guys to watch, to take a look at that. By the way, everything that I've been talking here, it is on this PDF, which professor, teacher, the lecturer Lucas and my place available for you guys, is that when he talks about posing, he actually breaks down like a scene, a shot, right? When the character needs to send a message to the audience. And for me, this is when he helps to tell the story. Okay. So one of his concepts is like, you have this shot, you have the scene, what the character needs to explain to the audience. And you have, of course, the character's performance. So within the character's performance, within the shot, you have several poses, right? So what he was trying to, and I think what he explains on this the same video that he talks about story, and he says that story isn't that important. In the same video, he's talking about the sequence of the series of poses that helps the character, that the character needs to perform in order to send the idea. And within this range of poses, what he was talking about is like avoid, it's a very like straightforward concept, I would say, which is actually quite good at the same time. It's like, try to avoid to all your poses to be the same intensity. So so it's the word he said was like, don't if like, because every animator has his own like choices. So sometimes animators, they are very posy, they tend to places their poses all over the place, which is okay. But if your character keeps like so broad, it's going to be hard to identify what you need, the message. So anyway, what I was saying is like, your range of poses within the shot is like a range of mountains. Okay, so when you see the mountains, if all the mountains are high, are the same like the same level, it would be hard to identify the most important mountain. So within the shot, what you need to do is just like to have one mountain that is more that's the most important one. So his message on this video is like, within the shot, try to identify your most important moment and make that the more relevant, with more importance, we would say. So anyway, this is Keith Langos, and I really encourage you guys to take a look on that videos. 2 videos is like 5 minutes each, and he recorded that in 2003, I think, but I think it's still pretty relevant. Anyway, going forward, now I will start going to the concept of the story, because Keith Langos said, "Oh, a story is not important." So funny enough, another artist, or in this case is a novel writer, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you are familiar with, I hope. is Stephen King's approach in the story. So this is actually on this Stephen King's book, which is called On Writing, I think. Yes, I think it is that the name of the book, but it's very interesting because he talks about his process on writing, why he's writing a book, right? So he came, like when I was reading that, it was like, I came across with that, it was quite interesting as well. It's like stories and novels consist of three parts: narration, description, and dialogue. You may wonder where the plot is in all this. The answer is nowhere. So for him, the story or plot is not important. Which and he goes back to the thing to the same theory, or like not the same theory, but kind of similar to what Keith Lang was talking about in terms of the character is more important. And I would agree with that, because character, if you want to make a story compelling, you want to make a character strong, right? But then again, let's keep going with this concepts. So this is another concept about story, and now I think we are going to more primal, the primal, like from where the stories starts, or where the, like in this case of this book, is what is the importance of the storytelling or the story, right? So this is a great book, actually. Well, I haven't read that one, but I heard about Harari. Harari has like a very interesting concepts about storytelling and story. So for him, for Harari, like, and that's the line on this book, fiction has enabled us to not merely to imagine things, but to do so collectively. Such myth gives sapiens the unprecedented ability to cooperate flexibly in large numbers. Now, some of you might be thinking about, well, what exactly animation has to do with that? I would say, and that's when the thing starts getting a little bit like in terms of concept. So we have to be in mind that the audience needs to get their message, the most clear way, let's put it this way, right? But we already have embedded in us, like, the concept of storytelling, and what we need is try to reach our audience the best way we can. So such concepts like Harari, so I think what we could take from this is, like, we human beings want to hear about stories, okay? But then how is more, like, how we can more effectively access our audience, or what, like a lot of psychologists, like we could argue, we create this empathy with our audience, and we as animators, we need to achieve that, right? And again, people but I think what I'm trying to say here also, it's a lot about acting in animation. So this is what we need to be kind of be very precise nowadays, especially nowadays, right? Competition is so intense. So keep going. This is another book that talks about the story as well, and I think Jordan Peterson's approach about in story, and specifically storytelling, it's on the same, roughly on the same range of Harari. So for him, for Peterson, there is no difference between comprehending stories and figure out how to get along in the world. So for me, this is like a very important, because again, as storytellers, because we are, as animators, we are storytellers. Forgive me, Keith Lango, but I think story has a huge impact on this kind of thing, right? So, and this is how we are. And again, when we are animating a shot, this is gonna affect our choices. Like what the character could do the best in order to, again, to get the idea and make the story going forward. Because remember, when you're working in a feature film or even a TV commercial, like you might be working with several, well, not might, you will be working with several artists, and everybody were trying to get that same emotion across. Either either if you're working for a TV commercial or a feature film, everybody's working to try to send a message, and we are telling a story. Basically, it doesn't matter if it's a TV commercial or a feature film, right? So I think what this philosophers and psychiatrists are trying to tell us is like we already have that storytelling, like story structure kind of embedded in us already. Okay. And one of the books that I came across that it talks about that as well, and then we can start explaining about the story per se. It's the Greeks, right? So in this book, The Classical Tradition from Gilbert Higgett, he actually explains kind of explains, well, pretty much shows us the influence of the classical books, ancient books, on the Western literature, or we could even say the Western culture. And that in that we have included movies and pop culture, we could say. So the Greeks have the greatest store of clear, memorable, beautiful myth. Far from being dead, they are still alive and fertile in our mind. So I think this is one of the things that explains, for example, for me, one of the things about the hero movies, right? All these hero movies that is happening nowadays, they are pretty much this is the stone where they are built from, the myth of the Greeks, and we are going to break down that to where we got from the Greeks to a Marvel movie, or like movies like Avengers and whatnot. Okay, so this is, I think, where the history of art started to getting not started, but it was, well, we could say that it started like to get the concept, their heads around what happened with the Asian history, Asian art history, and that connection with our modern world, and going through the Renaissance in Italy, right? So one of the artworks that actually was discovered by during excavations in Rome was this statue. So if you guys haven't heard about this statue before, this was actually used as one of the milestones of the art in that era. I'm talking about 1500, like the very beginning of the century, 16th century. So this is the Lacon, maybe. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but anyway, Laconte in Italian, maybe, is a marble sculpture attributed to this artists, and it was from the year 25th before Christ, right? When it was this statue is, they think probably it was done, but it was discovered by in the Renaissance again in the 1500 years. So, and why is this important? This is important because I think we could say this, while like we can say that with a certainty that that influenced artists like Michelangelo and Da Vinci. So this is what is on that book, The Classical Tradition. The group as a whole fall into a balanced shape as graceful and as various as the triangles formed by the groups in Leonardo's Last Supper. So, sorry, Leonardo da Vinci artwork is one of the works that is one of the most important in the world, of course. If you guys, I hope you have heard about him. Probably you have. But then this is where I think this things start to connecting, because artists like Leonardo da Vinci, they were the very first one that start thinking about art outside, a little bit more outside from the religion aspects. I mean, of course, Da Vinci, he was painting religious figures, but he started thinking about more about what the characters were thinking. So again, in a pose, this is when we start talking about getting back to talking to poses again, right? Because this is now like, I think where these things start connecting is what the storytelling and the posing and the stories they help to tell. So here, like this ancient paintings, especially from the Renaissance, we have a story happening on this particular picture, right? Done by Leonardo da Vinci. And again, he was an artist that started, for me, he's very important because, especially for us animators, because he was the very first artist that started thinking about what the character was thinking while doing that particular pose. So that's on the book of actually it's Walter Isaac. Sorry, I have the book over there, so that's I have to pick. Walter Isaac. He was the same biography of well, this is a writer. He did several biographies. One of I think he wrote the biography of Isaac Newton, if I'm not mistaken. But he wrote the biography of Leonardo da Vinci. So what he wrote about that is like his fascination with the connection between the mind and the body became a key component of his artistic genius. So this is now Leonardo da Vinci quote, right? In painting, the actions of the figures are in all cases expressive of the purpose of their minds. So I think this is a great theory for us animators. And very often we should avoid forgetting about, we should try to remind ourselves all the time. This is the best way to say that. You should try to remind ourselves all the time about what the character is thinking and what is his purpose on this particular shot. And I would even say in this story, within the story, right? So this is, for me, is the connections, one of the main connections between those artists from that time and the storytelling, and even then animation. Okay, And if you go around Da Vinci's artwork, it's great. It's like and how effective they were in sending a message. And remember, people, we are talking about here Renaissance. So that was the main media. That was like internet at that time, in terms of like that was the only way that people could get an idea on a media, like a certain media, and that was painting, right, or sculpture, which were the main art forms at the time. Even writing was very was just particular to very few people. Very few people were able to write or read at the time. Anyway, going forward, so what is the connection? So then we start using that influence from the old artists from that time to more recent work. And we, of course, start talking about Disney. We started this, I started this presentation with Meet Carl from Disney. And of course, if we are talking about the story of animation, we cannot not talk about Disney, right? And particularly the work of those specific animators they did in the beginning of the Disney, or what they call the golden era from Disney, which is from work like Pinocchio, from the Sleeping Beauty, and Fantasia from 1940. And this is an image from the sequence of the night on Bald Mountain. And I think this is when the animation is started like really to become more expressive. And again, we go back to that idea where the character needs to be, well, we are artists. We need to try to portray the best way as possible our animation, and figure out how we're going to send that message to the audience. So, for example, I chose this sequence from Disney's Fantasia, particularly because I don't know if that story is true, but even though I don't know who said that, it was like between the legend and the truth, choose to keep the legend. I forgot who said that, but I heard that this sequence, the animators were trying to get this very impressive attitude from this character, this particular character. We could say it is the devil. But so then they hired. So what is the name of the? Sorry, I'm just gonna take a look here. The name of the artist at the time.
Bill Teitler?
Huh?
Bill Teitler?
Yeah, that was the animator. Yes.
That was the animator. Yeah.
Yeah, but they hired an actor at the time, which was Bela Lugosi. If you guys are not aware who was Bela Lugosi was the famous actor at the time of horror movies in Hollywood. So Disney, they hired Bela Lugosi to do the performance of this character, and then they could use that on a movie. But what happened is when Bela Lugosi got to the studio to try to do that performance, there were nothing there. There were no props and anything that actually would help him to do that. So he was a little bit like useless, we could say, because again, he wasn't on his particular environment. So the animators, they need to have that reference from by themselves, and that was taken from the animators that actually performed that in order to to pass that concept to the audience. And this is a very powerful, for me, this is one of the best parts of the movie, it's very powerful. Um, it, and even on the story structure, when we talk about you know, the story when it goes like, when we have the story in three parts, like the part one, the middle part, and the last part, third part. This is one of the most this is the dramatic part of the movie. The whole movie, I would say, is this sequence. So I really encourage you guys to take a look on that. So going, so remember those characters, those artists, need to perform that. So another great example now, coming to our closer to our time, is this movie Transformers, and I think a lot of you guys might have heard about it, of course. And this particular movie, it's quite interesting as well, because I think the animator was Sean Kelly, right? He's one of the animators that started Animation Mentor. He was working at Industrial Light and Magic at the time, and again, I don't know if this story is true, but what we heard at the time, it was like this idea of using this character as a rollerblader on this highway desert wasn't on the script. So while they were talking about to work on this sequence, Sean Kelly and the animators from Industrial Light and Magic asked him, "Hey, can we make the robot to go like a rollerblader? Sorry, or roller skater? Man, why doing this shot?" And Michael Bay looked at them and was like, "Not sure if this is gonna work, but you guys could try." And they did, and that got a nomination. That actually won the best shot of that year in special effects. So again, people, this is another example where the animators should try to do something in order to improve to tell the story as much as we can. Of course, we won't go past the director, the producers, what they want, what they need for us to tell the story. But as more, the more we can help them to tell the story they want to tell, the better for everyone. And this is our job, right? As animators, we need to come and propose ideas. And if they don't want to do it, that's okay. I mean, we try, right? But for me, this is one of the great examples, like for nowadays, where the animators they can actually contribute to tell the story, and that's a great example, I think. But how we as animators, we could have a better sense of the story in itself, right? So for me, I started like getting more interested in terms of storytelling when I was doing my master. And then I heard about this guy before. Okay, I heard about Joseph Campbell around the 90s, because I heard that there were this theory where Star Wars was based from. Again, I haven't researched that actually happened, but some people say that George Lucas followed Joseph Campbell's theory, the hero's journey, in order to come up with Star Wars. If that's true, not sure, but if you take the concept of Joseph Campbell, you will see that mirrors incredibly with the Star Wars story and with several stories. And it's not like in nowadays more than ever, because actually I'll show you another book later on, but Hollywood is using heavily it's using heavily these concepts nowadays for all these movies they are doing, especially the movies blockbusters like hero movies, but other movies as well. Okay, so this theory is about storytelling and how we can get most out of the story with certain techniques. And I think this is one of the things that animators we could get a lot of advantage from, because if you were a little bit more aware of what the story, where the story should go, or how our characters should behave, or what's going on in their minds, in what are their, or what one even more important things, how they interact or how they help to make the story going forward. Because this is one thing to our, as we are as animators, we always should be thinking about how the story can go forward, right? Anyway, so great book. Actually, I haven't read that one, but I read this one. And again, people, all this this is all in a reference in the end of this PDF. So this book, it's, well, this is not, this book is called so here we have the hero's journey, and here Vogler. So Christopher Vogler, he was the guy who worked with Joseph Campbell. Okay, and Christopher, so Christopher Vogler, he actually took Joseph Campbell's concepts and developed for Hollywood. So he went to step even further. So he wrote this book called The Writer's Journey. So how we get all those concepts and apply to the storytelling, especially Hollywood, especially movies. Okay, and this is where I think, so instead of placing here the picture of the book itself, I'd rather decided to place this image, which is in the book, which is, he explains. So let's go through this. Whether the crisis is at the center of the story or near the end of Act 2, it's safe to say every story needs a crisis moment to convey the ideal sense of death and revival. Okay, so I think here what Christopher Vogler is trying to tell us is like, this is the main part, or the more dramatic part in a story. And again, that doesn't have to be necessarily a drama. It could be a comedy as well. You see that in movies, of even like Pixar movies, right? There's always this moment of the movie that where like they have the dramatic part of it. So the reason I place this image here is because if we have within the story the most dramatic moment, we go back to that same concept of Keith Lango. He was talking about the dramatic moment within the shot. So you see like that those two concepts, they run parallel. You have the shot, right, where we need to get the best out of the shot, and with that you have the best dramatic moment or the most strongest pose, and within the story you have the most important moment of the story. And that could be, I would argue that could be a relationship between those two concepts. Okay, and again, I think it's one of the things we as animators could have that in our favor, and how we could use that as most like in the most important sense for our work. Okay, to try to make our work even more compelling and important for the story. So all these concepts, right? I think one of the books that is like, it's a great introduction for us to start to talking about that, and for us to start thinking about story concepts is this book, Save the Cat. Is for me, it's a great introduction. I started with this book, and then after that, I started reading like other like several script writing books about script writing and more like with more in depth about the storytelling. All right, but this one is like is a great intro. I would say it's very short, and its concept is very. I think it's very. We could say it's very hands-on. So for us animators, that could be a good introduction for us to start talking about storytelling. And you could see that structure, like Snyder in this book, Save the Cat, he kind of explains very well, I mean, in a basic sense, but it's still like in an important way, like the story concept, right? And I think this is it. So just finishing with this image from the Beauty and the Beast, the movie from 1991. Glenn Keane for me is one of the best animators, very expressive, and where one of the legacy of Disney it's still happening. I don't think he's working for Disney anymore. I think. I'm sure that he has like no, he's not. He has a TV show now for on Netflix. It's actually, I haven't seen that yet, but for me, like Glenn Keane, it's one of the like it's very expressive, and we could talk about his work on Tarzan, for example, which influenced a lot of animators, especially from my time. And right, and after this, you have all these references there about what we talk about today, and this small bibliography. And I hope you guys got something from it.
Thank you so much, Wagner. So yeah, we'll absolutely put that PDF up on the stream site so you guys can take a closer look and take a look at some of those materials. Now, I'm going to pop open the chat here. If anyone has any questions, please raise your hand or pop a question into the chat, and we can kind of filter those through. To kick it off, maybe we don't have that much time, but to kick it off, I thought I might ask a question, Wagner, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure, please.
So for this lecture, you were talking a lot about storytelling and explicitly storytelling through posing. And I'm wondering how, and from a sort of a practical level, how do you go about taking the script and going through that first pass of posing, whether it's 2D or 3D? What's the kind of process, the emotional process or practical process you have going through those steps?
First, your question. It depends if we have time. If we have time in the production, I would first read what the motivations of the character is in the scene. So what is the character is trying to send the message, and then I would start doing some sketches, some drawings, some thumbnails, and then I would do some reference videos to try to get some good ideas out of that performance. Now, a lot of people, they're like a video shy, and they don't have much like they're not that extroverted to go to a video and start performance. So, and I've seen a lot of great animation coming from not that great performances. So if you go to LinkedIn and follow some of the great animators, every now and then they're placing there some great animations they did for major movies, and their performance is not that great, but they extract the best out of so sometimes very, very tiny things, they enhance that. Or even when they're doing your performance, you're going to start having ideas to do your animation and place it in your work. Now, someone asked about how many years I have in 3D animation. I started doing 3D animation back in 2001. So I've been doing 3D animation since then. Actually, so it's quite a long time.
What are your current tools that you like to use in 3D animation?
Oh, Maya. Yeah.
Maya?
Maya, yeah. But I already used 3D Studio Max as well. Actually, I started as a 3D Studio Max animator. I remember the first 3D Studio Max package that I worked with was Topaz back in 1997. If you guys heard about that. No, I don't think so. Some of them maybe.
So you have another question?
Yeah. But sorry, I couldn't read everything.
Okay, so you said you started off on 2D. I want to practice more 2D animation over the holidays, but at times lack inspiration. What's the best way to get inspiration or practice animating frame by frame or traditional? And also,
yes.
Which do you like most, 3D or 2D?
That's a tough question. I like both, actually. And it's funny because when I started, like people were like, "Oh, you have to be a 2D animator to do in order for you to be amazing to be a 3D animator, you need to be amazing 2D animator." I don't agree with that, even though I started with a 2D animator, 2D animation. I worked with great artists. They're actually working nowadays at Pixar, Disney, Blizzard, and they were not 2D animators. They could draw almost anything, and they became great 3D animators. Now, going back to your question, where to get their inspiration? Well, watch old movies, old Walt Disney movies. Those Walt Disney movies, from especially Jungle Book, for me, what a great example is the Jungle Book. Jungle Book is a movie. It's not great. It's not one of my favorite Disney movies at all. But if you pick the animation that were done on that movie, that's amazing. So if I want to get any inspired for a 2D animation, I just go. Sometimes I could find even that on YouTube. Just go traditional animation Disney rough and see what comes up. It's mind blowing. Once I saw an animation from what is that movie that you have the guy? Oh, sorry, my brain's a little bit off.
Give us something, man. You have a guy.
Sorry, the guy who steals from the poor to
Robin
from the rich to give to the
Robin
poor.
Hood.
Robin Hood.
Thank you. Robin Hood. So Robin Hood is not, again, it's a great other example. It's not a great movie, but some animations they did for that movie, it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. It looks like it was done in 3D. It's so perfect. Anyway, so I think there are other.
Yeah, I think that's for that particular movie. I think that's Don Bluth and Milt Kahl's influence on that one.
Yeah, it's incredible. Which do you like the most 3D? Yeah.
What's the favorite thing you've worked on? Is the last question we're going to take.
Actually, it was a very obscure production that I worked on back in 2000 years. I worked on that in the series of short movies from 2001, 2002 for 2008. Was all hand drawing animation, and yes, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. I mean, I haven't worked on like big titles, but I always been working like indie things and small productions. But it's quite fun on that as well.
I just wanted to back up your statement about that you don't need to be a 2D animator to be a great 3D animator. I sent you a message. I worked on over 20 feature films in 3D animation, and I can't draw a stick figure to save my life.
Draw.
I can barely write as well.
But that's okay. See, it's actually it's not impediment at all. What it is, I think it's your drive, and if you really want to do the job, you will do it. You will do it and make it look the best you can. This is the main point, I think.
All right, Wagner, I think we're going to call it right there because people have to move on. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time and your inspiration. And
thank you, guys. Yeah.
Is it okay if the students have questions? Is it okay if I forward them on to you?
Absolutely.
Okay, sounds
please,
good.
Please do that. I'll be very happy to answer anything any questions from them.
Great. So you have all heard that. Please let me know if you guys have questions for Wagner. Otherwise, let's give a hearty Zoom yellow clap.
Yay, thank you guys. Were really interesting. And that actually was the first time that actually I was thinking about the theories before, but actually was the first time that I actually put that on paper. So yeah, thanks for being my knee peak for that one.
Okay, and good luck this week with get in touch with Ruan if you guys have questions about the assignments and the workshops this week. Other than that, good luck. Keep going with the rigging and have fun. And we'll see you guys later.
Awesome, thank you.
Bye, Wagner. Good luck.
Bye, see ya. Thank you.